Alright, so today I'll be reading creative article number 2, revised, Moose and Glacier. I have been incredibly fortunate to get to travel across much of the United States so far in my life. Some of my most amazing experiences have been in our nation's Wild West. There's one memory specifically that I will remember for the rest of my life. That memory was made in the northeastern side of Glacier National Park, near the Mini Glacier Lodge. I had just checked into my room and I was about ready to head out and explore. This was my second or third time in the park, but it was my first time being alone. I was very eager to see and find things that I hadn't on all of my previous trips. I had been very lucky to see many animals on all of my past hikes, but I had no idea what was in store for this one. I walked through the front lobby of the lodge and out to the trailhead to start off on this amazing adventure. As I began to hike, I experienced some shortness of breath. At first, the air seemed thin, probably due to the elevation difference, but it was fresher than any I had ever experienced. The path beneath my feet was ever-changing. From steeps to valleys, through creeks, I had to be on my A game. A twisted ankle out here is a lot different than a twisted ankle at home. At this point, I had passed many signs for warnings about wildlife, specifically bears. And for the first time in my life, I really understood that I was a part of someone else's food chain. As I walked further and further into the wilderness, the mountains towered over me, making me feel incredibly small. The trees that enclosed the trail were massive, some alive, some dead, and many charred from the rare forest fires that occurred in the park. This was a place of true beauty, a place where anyone could become a National Geographic photographer due to the natural beauty of the park. The crisp air and the huge mountains made me feel alive in ways I'd never felt before. I absolutely fell in love with the park, and that is why I continue to visit again and again. Just as I was about to turn around and head back for the lodge, I ran into a sign for a lake called Fisher Cap. I knew that sounded familiar, so I went to investigate. Before I could even see the lake, it was almost as though I could smell it. The fresh water in the wind as it rolled down through the valley off of the lake. When I reached the lake, I set my pack down and knelt next to the water, sticking my hand in. It was ice cold and crystal clear. Across and all around the lake were towering pines with thick vegetation below. The whole lake's bottom was covered in the most interesting looking underwater vegetation. When I returned to my pack, I grabbed my water bottle and scooped some of the fresh water into it. Purifying it with iodine, I took a giant swig of it. Never has any water tasted that good. I recognized the lake and pretty much knew where I was in relation to the lodge for the first time in hours. I may or may not have been lost. I knew I had been here a few times with my grandparents. We had seen an elk and a female moose just a few years ago in this very same spot, so I decided to sit down for a while. As I sat down on the bank of the lake to rest up and eat a little something before returning to the room I was renting, I heard many noises coming from the birds. I also heard some not so great noises coming from the woods across from me. The next thing I know, I was looking a very large and mature bull moose right in the eyes. Only about 20 yards away from me, I knew I wouldn't be able to do much if he was aggressive. Luckily, he wanted nothing to do with me and decided to hang out while I took some of the most amazing photos I have ever taken. I didn't stay very long out of respect for the animal. With my heart racing, I snapped a few more pictures before I stood up and walked out backwards, never turning my back on him for fear that he may charge. Once clear, I almost collapsed from the pure excitement of what I had just seen. It was truly an unbelievable experience. Walking out from this hike, I remember everything perfectly. I was about a mile from the lodge when things turned from beautiful to horrific. A storm was blowing in, and I believed it to be a sign from Mother Nature. I had pushed my limits far enough for that day, and figured I better head back in for the night. After a long hot shower, I laid in bed and reflected on the day I had just had. I thought about how close of a call I had, about the beauty of the landscape I was in, and about how ruthless it could really be. Thanks.